Hey, noble ones, welcome to Metatron's Academy. So today I want to check out a video that, oh gosh, this is so interesting. I love etymology. I love etymology. Let's just start by saying that. Let's go. So we are on Wired. Usually I review this channel on my main channel, but this is about languages, so here we are. Linguist answers word origin, questions, tech support, Wired. Let's go.
I'm Linguist Gareth Roberts. Let's answer your questions from the internet about the history of English words. This is etymology support.
Okay, so specifically about English. Fine, cool.
Shatesy GG asks, is anyone else as fascinated by etymology, the origin of words and the subtle development of its meaning as me? Or am I just a sad old man? How very dare you. If you are, it's not because of loving etymology. It's a kind of offshoot of historical linguistics, the study of language over time, how it changes. And it's really fascinating because it lets us lift up the lid of the simple words we use. Take the word gossip. A godsib was originally someone who had a sort of godfather or godmother relationship with you. They were related to you by those means. They would be people you might confide in, you might share.
I think there is something like that. The word in Italian is pettegolezzo.
Social, personal information in. And so from there we get the word gossip as a person who shares gossip. From there we get the verb gossip. And this would have been in the Old English period that God and sib would have come together to form the word gossip. Lunaris says, dude and bro are gender neutral terms. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's an ignorant thing. I hate it. Oh, when people do that, they do. Well, to be honest, it's just an informal version. It's like when you apply words that are supposed to be gender restricted, but then you use them in non-gender restrictive ways. It's usually an informal usage.
This is actually quite common. Words becoming less or more gender neutral. So we can think of the word bro. Bro comes from brother, but then maybe they
he's going into the idea that you extend to he's not your literal brother, maybe.
Use it in a way that just includes friends. Yeah. Maybe a woman uses it to refer to a female friend.
No, that's only Sniper Wolf.
Suddenly it doesn't have that gendering anymore. Sometimes the same thing happens in reverse. In Old English, the word man was a general word for people. The word for man as in male was wer.
Oh yes, like I remember studying this at university. That's where werewolf comes from. Man, I'll have to double check that, but yes, it's where I think it is. That's why it means man wolf.
Really only survives in English in the word werewolf. Man.
Werewolf, yes. Oh my god, I'm talking 15 years ago here. Good memory, but that one did stick with me.
Has taken its place because this was a society where men were the default people. And if you refer to a default person, they tended to be male. Man ended up being associated in particular with males. The Old English word for man is also related to the word world. The word world in Proto-Germanic comes from word meaning man and the word alt meaning age. Age of man. This gives us some insight into how Germanic speakers saw themselves and their universe.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, even it's not just the way, it doesn't just give us insight to how Germanic people saw themselves in their universe. This isn't something that only happens in ancient period. Think of the word mankind. It absolutely includes women too, children in fact, and yet we say mankind. And in that situation, man is a plural, and it's a multi-encompassing umbrella term.
Another word in this area which has an interesting history, that's the word guy. So guy actually comes from the name of Guy Fawkes, who was captured in the gunpowder plot and executed horribly. And every year after that, in Britain, people celebrated catching and killing him by burning effigies of him on a big bonfire. Seriously? And these effigies were known as guys. Kids would go around asking for a penny for the guy.
A penny for the guy. You know, it's not nice that it's connected to someone being burnt at the stake or executed, whatever, but a penny for the guy. May I have a penny for the guy? Do you want a penny for the guy?
People sometimes started using this to refer to someone who was disheveled, a sort of grotesque-looking human, a sort of insulting term for a man. You might call him a guy. And in America, interestingly, around the same kind of period, you get examples of people using the word just to refer to man generically.
Okay, so basically it's the Americans, guys. It's your fault. I like the word guy, though. I like the word guy used as opposed to as a slightly less formal way of man, person, bloke.
Gifted N Gifted Zero asks, who the came up with a silent letter? English spelling is weird. Take the word night or nor. Once upon a time, people genuinely did pronounce the K at the start of night. They'd say knicht, or they would pronounce the G at the start of nor. They'd say gnor. Over time in English, these things change. People stopped pronouncing those, but we didn't update the spelling.
I'd like to underline that when it comes to the consonants, he's absolutely right. Usually I think it's a matter of people getting a little lazy. And therefore it's not, I want to say that night is definitely easier to say than knight. Although then again, we do have to remember that. But I do believe that the K drops around the 15th century. I think the K drops before the vowel shift has completed, the great vowel shift. So when it comes to vowels, I think you had knicht that evolved into knecht, because the evolution is E to A to I. So if you think about it, when in some areas of Scotland, they say all right instead of all right, or tame instead of time, they're actually being linguistically conservative. That's how everyone used to speak before that. It's one of the ladders of the great vowel shift and the way vowels changed. But I think when it comes to the K, it's because it's a little difficult to say, and so people just start saying night, 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 night. It's just easier to say rather than knight, 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 knight.
Actually did used to say walder and shoulder, the ancestors of would and should. We stopped pronouncing those L's, but we kept the L's in. But could never actually had the L in the first place.
Added it posthumously, which you shouldn't have done.
We just added that L because we wanted to make it match up with would and should. And we find this kind of thing also happening quite a lot with words that have been borrowed into the language. There was no B in the word doubt, either in
I think in that case it's different though. I think it's because of the Latin.
English or in French. But the word came ultimately from the Latin word dubitare, which has a B. So at some point in the...
It's similar to debt. Debt used to be spelled D-E-T-T-E, the French way, and now English spells it D-E-B-T, even though the B is not pronounced. In fact, it's very similar. Debt, because it comes from Latin. In that case, you connect it to Latin, which was a language of power and authority. So I think there is a reason that is socio-linguistic in this case. It's a little deeper.
Middle Ages, both French and English scribes decided that perhaps we should put the B back in. Jenna Civvy, someone just used the word unalived on BBC News. The news! And my dad turned to me and was like, I didn't know that was a word. This is one of those places where you have an effect of taboos. You have a taboo which is actually, if you like, implemented via social media. And so we end up trying to skirt around the words we're not meant to use.
I hate it. It's one of the most stupid, it's almost this idea that I have to say unalive, otherwise my video gets demonetized or decreased in monetization. The width at which variety of ads availability is so stupid. Because when I say unalive, I'm saying the same thing. The concept is the same. So people do find ways to go around. It's a useless endeavor and it's stupid. And it's very similar to when we have to censor art. Like, I cannot make videos on ancient Roman sexuality and show statues to represent a concept because my video is going to get completely demonetized with the red $sign. And this has happened to me, and it still annoys me, with a video of mine that ended up hitting 1.8 million views. So you can imagine that video getting completely demonetized. I could have made a big amount of money for that research. And for what? Because we needed to censor a statue or a mosaic from 2,000 years ago, but then YouTube has no problem with people doing naked yoga or teaching you how to shave your private parts. It's ridiculous. And this is the same with this sort of censorship of words within social media. It's just...
come up with words like unalived. And this happens quite a lot. We think, for instance, that the reason the English word bear isn't cognate with the word for bear in Latin or Welsh or Greek is that people didn't want to refer to bears because it felt to them perhaps as if they might invoke the horror of this big scary creature in using the word. So you'd expect modern English word for bear to be cognate with the French word ours, which comes from this Proto-Indo-European word pronounced something like hurtus. Instead, bear seems to trace back to bear in Proto-Indo-European, meaning brown. This is not the only theory. There's some...
Unless you actually connect it to Old Norse, which is very likely, in my opinion, because you have Björn, But then bear is a contraction from Björn that we do use, for example, in Berserker, possibly. Unless bear in that case means bear of shirt, which is also another possibility because they wouldn't wear armor in combat. So either bear skin or bear of skin. But whatever the case, I'm not sure about that.
Other theories about where the modern English word bear comes from, but we know for sure it does not come from the same place as most of the other Indo-European languages got their words bear from. Et endi lu, reading about Grimm's law for the nth time and I still ain't understanding. So Grimm's law refers to a set of sound changes which happened to occur in the Germanic languages like English millennia ago in the emergence of Proto-Germanic from Proto-Indo-European. P became F in the Germanic languages, K became H. For example, here are some words in English: fish, father, hound, head, and their cognates in Latin. Piscis, pater, canis, caput. The P's in Latin
Piscis, pater, canis, caput. Yeah.
Latin correspond to F's in English, and the C's in Latin correspond to H's in English. You can get an idea about how certain changes happen by...
I wonder why he says that they correspond, though, because clearly hound has no relationship with canis, and instead has a relationship with German Hund, and possibly same head. I don't see that like these two words are two... Unless what he's trying to say is that these words used to have C's and then they changed, because he was talking about Proto... Well, I'll have to see because I haven't reviewed Proto-Indo-European and Proto-Germanic in a while.
Latin correspond to F's in English, and the C's in Latin correspond to...
Making up new words, let's go.
Making up words. Yes, quite literally that's what we did as humans to create language. Or do you think a man in the sky just dropped the Oxford English Dictionary on the Neanderthal on his way back to his cave? Yes. We make up words all the time.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is we very rarely make up words from nothing. Let's say you have a pet frog and you make a house for your pet frog. You're unlikely to invent a completely new word for that. You'll probably just call it a frog house. You'll take the words frog and house and combine them and make a new word. The other thing people sometimes do is they will use iconic forms to refer to something when they don't think they have enough in common with the person they're talking to for an existing word to work. For example, let's imagine you're trying to convey to someone who doesn't speak your language that you want cow's milk. Maybe what you'll do is, my milky cow, you'll glub, 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 moo. What you've done there is created an iconic form, and maybe you'll meet this person multiple times in the future, and you probably won't go through the whole charade every time of glub, 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 moo. Maybe the next time you meet them, you'll say something like glub, moo. And that is not dissimilar from what's happened many times in the history of language. Another example.
It is fascinating. I do want to also interject by saying that neologism and the rate at which, or the speed linguistically at which new words are created varies tremendously from language to language. They're absolutely not the same. And Chinese is one of the languages, I think, that creates a crazy number of neologism, but Japanese instead tends to, for example, take words from other languages and fit them into their own and then adapt them. But it kind of depends. We all have different strategies as well.
The word but in English originally meant outside. Outside implies physical separation. It implies that something is not within the other thing. It's a short step from there to meaning without. You have something without the other thing because that thing is now outside it. That's shifted to be used in an abstract sense to mean accept. Everything except that tree.
Oh, I kept imagining, what does that have to do with a person's behind? I kept thinking, but he could have specified the B-U-T. Because I kept thinking B-U-T-T.
Everything except this book. And over time, this meaning of without or except shifted even further to mean but, to make a contrast between two parts of a sentence.
Fantastic. Let's talk about... Oh, guys, I'm specifically skipping sections, by the way, because I want you to go to the actual video and watch it rather than watch the whole thing through me. So you'll find a link in the description and as a pinned comment. I want to have a look at orange and fall. Yeah, I love the word fall, by the way, for autumn.
Where did the word orange come from? The word orange came into English from French, and French got it from Spanish, which got it from Arabic, which got it from Sanskrit, and so on.
Wow.
What's interesting here is the Spanish word is naranja, starting with an N. The N became associated with the indefinite article. So it's like instead of saying norange, you reinterpret that as an orange. And this actually happened a few times in the history of words. So apron originally was napron, reinterpreted as an apron. And the Old English word for snake, nader, was reinterpreted as an adder. So sometimes mistakes can give birth to new forms of words.
Also, sometimes mistakes are a fantastic way to reconstruct dead languages. It's another one. Let's have a look at this one. This is the one I'm interested in.
Say fall when autumn was.
So why do Americans say fall when autumn was a perfectly good word for the season? Was fall in English parlance around the time of the English settled in the New World? Oh yeah, 15th century. It's that's I love the expression fall. I don't even know why. It definitely was created in England, and then because that's we do find mentions of it that are late medieval, early Renaissance, perhaps. But then I imagine it fell in disuse, and now in modern British English you use autumn, but in American English it maintained. So American English is not that they made it up; they are more conservative of that word, and they still use it. I like the expression "fall" because it makes you think of the leaves that are falling, which I believe that's where it comes from. Unless
A perfectly good word for the season.
Otherwise,
neither fall nor autumn was actually the original English word. Fall seems to be first recorded some point in the 16th century in English to refer to autumn. But before that, English speakers actually referred to autumn as harvest. This is cognate with the words in other Germanic languages like German Herbst, meaning autumn. In England, that got quite specific, referring to the gathering of the crops in the autumn. So in the 16th century, both fall and autumn were being used to some extent in Britain to refer to the season. Fall, the fall of the leaves, comes from the Old English word fall. Autumn are borrowing from Latin via French.
We even say autunno in Italian, so we also have that one. I always thought the fall was very nice. Let's watch. Oh, he does speak about the great vowel shift. Nice. So let's check this no section.
Who invented the word no? We don't know.
Yeah, good luck knowing that one.
No goes back ultimately to Proto-Indo-European. The English word no is actually a shortening of none, which comes from ne an, meaning not one. And the ne part is actually very similar to its Proto-Indo-European ancestor ne. And that survives in lots of modern Indo-European languages. We don't know what the origin is of this word, but one possibility that's been suggested is it actually goes back to the kind of face that maybe babies make when they refuse something, the no.
Yeah, I think that's nonsense. But it's interesting that the origin from not one, that I really like. Fantastic. Okay, so I think I'm going to call it a day for today, so that you've got several sections that you can check out. Give him a like. This was a very nice presentation. I very much enjoyed it. And if you liked this, please let me know. And if you want me to speak a little more, perhaps, about etymology myself, of course, leave a comment and I will absolutely do that. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Thank you for joining Metatron's Academy. Bye.